Welcome to my channel, Lion Gaming. My name is Adrian and today I will be building a 4K value PC. But let's first get something out of the way. I know my accent, it's a little bit different. It's because I'm from South Africa. Yes, I know, I'm from Africa and it's not exactly what you guys were expecting. And no, we don't have lions in our backyards, we don't ride elephants to the shops, we don't all live in mud huts, and we do have roads, as well as having electricity, be it only for most of the time. And now that we've gotten that out of the way, we can get started on the components and why I chose each of them. Starting with the motherboard. I did a bit of research and turns out you don't actually get that much for a high-end motherboard. You used to get some plastic covers that are for protection, despite it already being inside a case. But you do get things like maybe 15 SATA ports, not that anyone would ever need that many SATA ports, or USB 3 ports, sometimes up to 12. Once again, I can't think of anyone that would need that many USB ports or could even realistically justify that many. I mean, external drives would be about this high. I don't know why. But anyways, I thought that was a bit unnecessary, so I went for more of a mid-tier board that had just enough features that I thought were necessary, but without the ridiculous ones like liquid cooling your motherboard, which is just completely over the top. So I decided on a MSI motherboard. I like the way that the BIOS was laid out. I like the smart fan controllers, and I like the way that they position their CPU, not the CPU, all the fan headers around the motherboard. They were positioned pretty much where you would need them, rather than all at the top, all at the bottom, or the CPU header being too far away from the CPU. So I thought it would be a nicer, tidier board in that regard. So I opted for the MSI boards. I really liked the Z97 range that they had, but once again, this had a very high end and a very low end. And I thought that the Gaming 5 was a good compromise between the features that I would make use of and the features that I wouldn't make use of. So yeah, that's why I opted for the MSI Gaming 5 in this case. And now that I had chosen a motherboard, I needed to get a CPU that would fit inside my socket. To me at least, the i7 4790K was the obvious choice, with games such as Grand Theft Auto 5 and Battlefield 4 proving ever more CPU intensive. I know for that purpose it is slightly overpowered. Get a bit more than just slightly, but I did want to give myself a bit of headroom to grow in case game developers choose in the future that they want to utilize more of the CPU's processing power. So I left myself a bit of headroom there. Plus, when it came to editing the footage, yes, I know for editing it's not that intensive, but when the rendering occurs, a higher clock speed and higher potential CPU will drastically decrease rendering times, which, let's be honest, 4K videos at 60 frames a second are going to take forever to render on an i3 when being compared to an i7. And that was at least my logic behind this. And also, I was a little bit skeptical of the standard cooler. I mean, they fit the processor and the cooler in this box. It's evident how small it is. So, seeing that I live in Africa, and Africa isn't really renowned for their glaciers and ski resorts. Look, I'm being serious, it gets hot here. I mean, a fair distance, not that far from where I live, it regularly gets over 40 degrees during the summer, and we are entering summer now, so I thought I'd get myself a nice Cooler Master TX3 cooler. Yeah, I know it's not the biggest one, but I didn't want to go for the big Cooler Master 212. I think it's a bit heavy, and I've heard a few stories of people having their motherboards bend, so I thought this was a good compromise, and seeing that I'm not overclocking my CPU, this will be more than enough, even on hot days, to keep my CPU nice and cool. And just to make sure that I can utilize the maximum cooling potential, I got myself some fairly high-end thermal paste, which will do the trick just fine. Now, moving on to the RAM. Initially, I was going to get myself 2 sticks of value RAM, and then when I was going through the price lists, I found that the Corsair Vengeance RAM was as little as $2 more expensive, and I thought that the heatsinks would actually fit far better with the build than value RAM without anything over it. I know it's not completely necessary, but I thought it looked nice and it would look nice in the build. So for $2 more, I thought it was money well spent. And the reason that I went for 8 gig sticks and not 4 gig sticks is because eventually I want to be able to upgrade to 32 gigs. I know for gaming this is complete overkill, but for 4K video editing, it's actually recommended to have up to 32 gigs of available RAM. And that's my logic behind allowing me to get up to 32 gigs of RAM in the future. Now, the item you've all been waiting for, and arguably the most important piece of any gaming PC, the graphics card. When I was first sourcing all the different components, I decided on getting myself the NVIDIA GTX 970, and I was planning on SLIing 2 of these cards. I know in your country it might be a bit different, but here in South Africa, when I was shopping with the current prices, those 2 cards in SLI was going to give me the best performance for the amount of money I was willing to spend. And when I was going through the price list, looking for the different manufacturers, I came across the AMD cards. And so, being a value builder, I thought it was my duty to go and see what these cards were capable of. And lo and behold, the R9 390 was significantly better than what the 970 was. And it was actually cheaper. So, logically, I opted for that card rather. So, and when I was preparing my list and getting ready to buy them, I noticed one of the distributors actually put the R9 390X on special. And they were exactly the same price as the 970s were. And look, even the biggest NVIDIA fan out there will admit that this is very good value for money. If you have to choose between a 390X and a 970, anyone would have gone for the 390X. And look, I will admit I've been a bit of an NVIDIA fanboy from when I was 10. My first graphics card was a tiny little 64 megabyte card. It didn't even have a fan on it. It was just this tiny little passively cooled GPU. And look, back then I could play the games all right at medium settings, and it was more than good enough. But this time when I was card shopping, the AMD had the better offer, significantly better offer. Not to mention, these are 8 gig cards, where the 970s are only 3.5 gigs. Yeah, those aren't really 4 gig cards. And yeah, that's the story behind these. Moving on to the power supply. Firstly, the graphics cards and the CPU pretty much dictated the wattage that I would need, and after visiting a few power calculating websites, they pretty much recommend that I get anything from 850 upwards. And because I'm in South Africa, the distributors have a somewhat limited choice to the number of power supplies in this bracket. And I was very blown away at the price that I could get a Corsair RM 850 for. Look, I know this is not exactly cheap. This is a well-known brand, comes with a 5-year warranty. It's got all the plugs and components that I need to SLI it straight out of the box, so I wouldn't have to spend any extra money. And to me, that was relatively important. The most important thing to me was the brand. And I know that if you buy a cheap one and it blows, it does have the potential to damage the rest of your hardware. So I think for a couple dollars extra, I think this was a very good buy. Next, I had to decide on a case. After choosing these graphics cards, it was pretty much dictated to me that I would have to get a high airflow case because these are internally exhausting graphics cards. Plus, I'm going to be crossfiring 2 of them, and circulating their own heat is not going to be very good for dissipating the heat, and they'll overheat, thermally throttle, and it's just a disaster. So I looked at all the high airflow cases that were available, and I'll be honest with you, the selection isn't too great. Very few of them even are filtered. Some of them have small little windows. I mean, you want to see your stuff. Why would you want a small window? And when I came across the Corsair Obsidian 450D, all the vents are filtered, very big window, removable hard drive tray, perfect for airflow. To me, this was the perfect case. And I couldn't believe the price that I was getting it at. This was the same price as the Cooler Master equivalent. So the logical choice, at least in my opinion. Then once I had chosen the case, I had to get fans to fill each port. Now, I had to get myself 5 120mm fans, so there would be 3 on top and 2 on the bottom. And when I went through this whole list of fans that I could get, and I was looking at importing from overseas because there isn't too much selection locally, I came across the one distributor that same time these were on special. In fact, I got those. They were $8 each. $8 for Cooler Master Jet Flow 120mm fans. That is incredible value. You can't beat that value for those fans. So that's how I ended up with Cooler Master fans. As for the microphone, my choices were incredibly limited. I mean, like literally I could only get this microphone or office grade microphones or studio grade microphones, and I didn't exactly want to spend as much money on my microphone as I had spent on my entire rig, and I also didn't want it to sound as if I am talking through a cup with a string so that you guys could hear me. So yeah, this was the best compromise, and it's actually a very good microphone. I'm actually using it right now to record the video. So yeah, that's why I chose the microphone. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Dislike it if you didn't. Comment if you have something to say. And subscribe for more content. In my next video, I'll be benchmarking the computer. Stay tuned for that. Until next time, cheers.